Hey everybody, it's Beverly at Bama Blind, and I want to welcome you back to another chat. And today is a pretty interesting chat for me. It's one of those topics that I have thought about for a long time, and I try to think of things that affect the blind community, that affect me individually. And when things happen in my life, I try to figure out, okay, what happened? And can I figure out why it happened? This particular topic is about being blind and about how others in the general population see people like me that are blind. And I'm not going to include visually impaired because I want to use the semantic of being blind. And one of the things I've thought about, one of the things that I've really thought about, I've recently done a video talking about being a hero or being inspirational to people who see me as a person in the world that functions without any vision and just kind of go around, in my life and just have a regular, average, normal life. And it's not too different from someone else's life that has normal vision. I do things differently, of course, but one of the things I have been thinking about is why do people that have normal vision feel that it is virtually impossible to live a quote normal happy life when you don't have vision? Why is that? And I wonder that a lot. I wonder why they think it is so very difficult, if not impossible. And I've gotten this question over probably the last 20 years because I think I'm approachable. I do like to talk to people about concepts of blindness and about tasks that blind people can do and things that we really have difficulty doing. And I can say in a complete broad brush stroke that we have difficulty doing anything that is one-dimensional. So if it's something that completely takes vision and vision alone, and you can't touch it, and you can't smell it, and you can't hear it, and you can't taste it, and you can't feel it, it's probably something we would have difficulty in doing. But that's not to say we can't do it. That just means we have to find another way to do it. But the question that I have is, why does the general population feel that if you don't have functional vision, it's virtually impossible to function in this world? And I think there's a couple of reasons. The first, I think, is because vision is our primary sense as humans. So you're born with vision, and hopefully it's normal vision, but that is the human being's primary sense. We have developed it. We have learned to use it. I call it our alpha sense. It's the top dog of the whole group. It takes precedent over hearing, over tasting, over smelling, and even over touching, because 90% of the information that's taken into our brain, if you have normal vision, is taken in through vision and through sight, through your eyes. Now, that doesn't mean that 90% of communication is visual. That is absolutely not true. But 90% of the information taken into the brain is through the sense of sight. So if you take that sense of sight away, then, if everything is black and white, then you would think, okay, there's only 10% left that your ears and your nose and your taste buds and your sense of touch, there's only 10% left. And so basically you're not functioning. And I could see where that would be mistaken by someone who only knows how to use their vision as a primary sense, and they rely on it for 90% of what they do, or at least they think they do. It doesn't, let me preface this back again. 90% of the information taken into the brain, but that doesn't mean 90% of the tasks are done with vision. That's just information. So as I'm scanning around this room with my eyes, if my eyes were normal, they would pick up billions of pieces of information just as I'm turning my head from side to side, just as I'm looking directly, hopefully, at the camera. I would be able to pick up lots of information. There is a window right behind the camera, so if I look over the camera and out the window, there is another probably 1 million pieces of data that my brain would take in just because I'm looking. But if I close my eyes, that doesn't mean that those things aren't there. It just means that I'm not experiencing them through my vision. So when you look at it that way, you know that most of the information that's taken into your brain is visual, unless you've learned to take in information through your other senses. And your other senses usually default. They usually go to a default setting when you have normal vision. So, and I can attest to this, when I had better vision than I have now, when I relied on my vision for getting around and for doing all of my tasks except for very fine reading tasks and fine visual detail tasks. I relied on my vision for everything else. My ears took a secondary role in that. So I really didn't use my ears. I certainly didn't use my sense of smell. My sense of smell really did not start benefiting me until I got my first guide dog, Gretchen, who happens to be over my left shoulder, laying on the bed, just watching me as I talk. So if you hear her over there, she's just laying on the guest bed watching me. So anyway, after I got Gretchen, I realized, okay, when I walk past certain shops and certain businesses, they have a certain odor, a certain fragrance. And I really noticed that. But when I had my functional vision, I couldn't have told you anything about my sense of smell. I couldn't have walked past a coffee shop or a perfumery even, unless I kind of went into it and said, oh yeah, okay, this place sells perfumes and soaps and things like that. So, you know, you might notice it, but it kind of has to slap you in the face. When you don't have vision, you notice it. It's there, and it's there for the using. The same with my hearing. I know I've recently uploaded a video and I talked about walking along a sidewalk with parallel traffic that's going, you know, forward at the same direction I'm going, and how I listen to that traffic and I can hear where it stops ahead of me, so I know that that's where the intersection is. Before I lost my functional mobility vision, I wasn't able to, I just didn't put that into play. I relied on my vision to tell me where the intersection was. And because I was low vision, I would have to get about 20 or 30 feet from the corner and then say, okay, well, now I'm at the corner. But I certainly didn't think about listening to cars and listening to when they stopped and idled and took off. I just didn't think about that. The same with taste, the same with touch. You know, when you touch something, you're hardly, I know with me, it was with washing dishes and cleaning the countertop, okay? Cleaning a countertop, I always done visually. I would say, okay, there's a spot, let me clean it. I'll grab a towel and get the spot off of the countertop. And when I lost that functional vision over time, I had to actually touch that area, but I was able to find the spot and then able to wipe the spot away. So as long as it was three-dimensional and not a stain that was embedded into the material, then I could clean just as well as anybody else. Same with cleaning a tub or cleaning a toilet or cleaning a sink. Those things can be done because you can use your hands and use your sense of touch. But if you're using your vision as 90% of your functioning ability, then in reality, you assume that that if that vision is gone, you know it because you use your vision. If that vision is gone, you can't do any of those tasks. And I think that's the fallacy when we talk to people in general. It's because when they close their eyes, they think, I can't possibly do that with my eyes closed. So there's got to be some superpower or some super sense that this person who can't see has. And that's not true at all. That is not true. The thing that is the truth is we don't use our other senses because our sense of sight is our alpha sense. It takes over, it dominates, and most people are very, very visual. So I think that's one of the reasons that blind people get a kind of a preconceived notion from the general public that it's impossible to function without your sight because the general public has sight, and they assume within their personal experiences, if I close my eyes, if I don't have sight, I can't do it. But the reality is you just haven't developed the skills. And it's like, I've talked to so many people. You don't just go blind and wake up and say, okay, now I can, go jump in a strange vehicle, not drive, but jump in an Uber and go to the mall and find my way to the coffee shop and order my coffee and sit down and go over all my emails and just chill for a while. You don't wake up blind and do that. Every single thing that I just said takes days, weeks, and months, maybe even years to learn, and then to build up the courage to do it without that primary sense of sight. Now, if you're born without sight, it's a totally different thing because people who are born without sight or born with extremely limited sight began this training from birth, and it's developmental and it's much easier, and it's kind of like a no-brainer. People that are adventitiously blind or people who have acquired blindness have a more difficult time if they lose their vision because they've relied on their vision to do just about everything. I had a friend one time, and he was not born completely blind, but by the age of 6 months, he had both eyes removed due to aggressive cancer. And he grew up to be a brilliant man. He was a head of a state department. And, one time he made the statement, he played in a band just for fun, just for kicks, played the bass guitar. And the power went off one night when they were practicing, and everybody was like, oh my God, the power went off, and it was in a big auditorium, and nobody knew where the exits were, and everybody was freaking out because it was pitch black. And my friend said, hey, the people said, you don't understand, we can't see. He said, don't worry about it, it's overrated. And I really, truly didn't understand that statement until I lost the majority of my functional vision. And I'm not underrating sight. I'm just saying that by nature, by human nature, we rely on it as humans primarily as our alpha sense. It's the dominant sense. It's the sense that takes over. But if you don't have it, that doesn't mean at all that the other senses won't take over. Then I think the other thing that adds to the general misconception about blindness that has kind of eked its way into our culture as humans, our culture as a society, is that we have mixed together the fact that if you don't have sight, you have other issues that aren't happening. And a perfect example of that, I'm going to play you something now. I hope this will record. And please bear with me because it's easier for me to do it this way than try to get a Braille dictionary or some other kind of device. But I'm going to give you definitions, just a few definitions that our culture has when referring to being blind. So here we go. Alexa, tell me the definition of the word blind.
As an adjective, blind is usually defined as unable to see, lacking the sense of sight, sightless. As a verb, blind is usually defined as to make sightless permanently, temporarily, or momentarily, as by injuring, dazzling, bandaging the eyes, etc.
Right.
As a noun, blind is usually defined as something that obstructs vision, as a blinker for a horse. As an adverb, blind is usually defined as into a stupor, to the degree at which consciousness is lost. For more, ask me to give you more definitions for blind.
I'm going to give you a couple. Alexa, give me more definitions for the word blind.
I have 33 more definitions for blind. As an adjective, 1. Unwilling or unable to perceive or understand. 2. Not characterized or determined by reason or control. 3. Not having or based on reason or intelligence, absolute and unquestioning. 4. Lacking all consciousness or awareness. 5. Drunk, being in a temporary state in which one's physical and mental faculties are impaired by an excessive alcoholic drink.
That's enough.
Intoxicated.
Alexa,
6.
stop. That's enough. That gives you an idea of why people will walk up to us as blind people and assume we are clueless. Because blind has been interchanged synonymously with all of these definitions that I just gave an example for. So it ekes into cognition. So being blind in its broad term is indicative of not being able to think, not being aware. It's almost like the word paralysis versus something else. So if you say that I'm paralyzed, that's a state of being. I'm paralyzed. That kind of means that you can't move. You're unable to go forward. You can't basically do anything physically. But if you say, my legs don't work, hey, that's different. That doesn't mean that you're paralyzed. That just means that your legs don't work. You can't stand up and walk around. But it doesn't mean you're paralyzed. It means that you can't use your legs to move around in your environment. So it's the same with blindness. I always say, and this was brought to my attention when I was talking with a child. When a child asks me, what is your dog for? And I always say, my dog is a guide dog. My guide dog guides me because my eyes don't work. Now that tells you my brain is functioning, my ears are functioning, my mouth is functioning, my sense of smell, my sense of touch, my sense of interacting with you as a person is working. The only thing that's not working are my eyes. So when I said that to this child, it was like a no-brainer. Oh, okay, your eyes don't work. You know, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, you're blind. So you are ignorant, or you are totally unaware, or you are to a drunken state that you're so impaired that you have no idea what is going on around you. And people interchange those all the time. I have seen them so many times interchange blind for ignorance or some sort of cognition. And so I'm not saying in this talk that we need to eliminate the word blind, but I have found when I describe myself, and I don't mind at all saying I'm blind, I'm blind, because then I usually will dazzle you with my vocabulary or maybe my real strong desire to get to know you, and so my personality comes out, and it's obvious that my brain is engaged most of the time. And I certainly can hear. But when I say to people, my eyes don't function, or the back of my eyes don't work, or I don't have functional eyesight, when I separate the two out and I don't use the broad term blind, I get a better interaction with people. And I'm not saying that we should take the word blind away, because I'm very comfortable with being called blind. I'd rather be called blind than visually impaired. I think people, for me, get the idea if you're visually impaired, they expect that my vision is so similar to theirs and there's just a little impairment. When the truth of the matter is, I don't have functional vision. I don't have useful vision. So my eyes aren't useful to me. So when I say it that way, it kind of lets the person know very subtly that everything else, on a good day is engaged. And so blindness does need to be separated from those cognitive abilities that make people think you're totally unaware. Because people have eyes, and when they close them, because it's their alpha sense, they are basically totally unaware. They haven't built skills to walk around, to function, to do daily tasks without that alpha sense of sight. So they just assume because they close their eyes, that's got to be the way it is for you, and they're scared and they're intimidated, and it's a process. Learning to live without that alpha sense is a process, and if they took the time to learn it, then they would realize that. I'll add another little story because I think it's so interesting. When I was in training at the Seeing Eye, my trainer, we were talking one day, and she was driving, and she had 3 of us blind handlers and 3 awesome dogs in this van, and we were going out for training. And she explained that when she gets up in the morning, at home, and then comes to the Seeing Eye campus, she gets up, and her son was living with her in college, and she said, I don't turn on any lights. I don't want to wake him up. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, you don't turn on any lights. This is really unusual. You're driving this van. You've got 20/20 vision. You're our trainer. Your eyes are on us when we're out there in the middle of the traffic. She said, learning to not use your eyes as a trainer for the Seeing Eye has given her the ability to understand that you don't have to have them for so very many things that people just assume that you have to have eyes for. So she said every morning she would get up, she would take her shower and be dark. She didn't, it didn't affect her one way or the other. She would brush her teeth in the dark. She would pull her clothes out of the closet, get dressed, put her shoes on, comb her hair, put lip gloss on, get her car keys, go get in her car, and that's kind of the first she'd see because it was dawn, and she'd go get her coffee at the coffee shop. So, I thought, this is awesome. Here's a person who has the advantage of having that alpha sense, but she's learned to use the other senses, and she has taken that sense and said, okay, it's a God-given sense. It's something that is very, very valuable, but it's not necessary. it's not essential to sustain life. And I want to say it's not essential to sustain happiness, and it's not essential to sustain joyfulness and to be productive. So that is my talk on blindness and what I think has become a very confusing issue for the general population as they think of blindness as the end all. You know, if you don't have sight, you just can't function. And, I think my next video, I am going to just give a laundry list of the things that I do without sight. And it may surprise people and it may not. It won't surprise my blind friends because that's how they live. It might very well surprise people in the general population because unless somebody like me tells you, you won't know these things. You will not know how people like me live, how we get along, the things that we can do and the things that we can't do. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know it was kind of long, but I really wanted to put it out there and just explain my thoughts about blindness in a very general global sense and the difference in blindness as a state of being and having the condition where your eyes don't work. So hopefully you will have a very, very safe and happy and healthy rest of your week, and I will see you next time when I upload. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.